and close. Good, we're recording now. We do have closed captioning, so when you speak, please enunciate clearly into your microphone. This will help make sure that this is working effectively. If anyone ever needs any other accommodations, just please let us know. You can send us an email at kramer.liz, kramer.liz@gmail.com, or you can email me at Christy R. Holland, CHRISTIE R Holland@gmail.com. So with that said, again, welcome to the Community Mobility Committee. And as a reminder, this is a place for residents and interested individuals to advocate for and learn about mobility and transportation issues in the city of St. Louis. So as we talk, please be respectful in conversations and questions. We're grateful to have everyone here from different parts of the city, and we encourage everyone participating to be respectful of their hard work and efforts, as well as all the varying opinions. Please avoid jargon and acronyms. If you are using technical transportation terms, please define it and ideally share a link in the chat. Now, all of our members are familiar with this language, and we want to make sure that we have an inclusive space for learning. Please be mindful of time. We will be encouraging more follow-up to happen outside of the CMC meetings, both through notes and also through direct answers to questions. So we hope that this will be helpful, and we hope this will help us keep our meetings focused and respectful. Please use the chat to share questions and responses. We will be collecting these in the notes as well. To our city staff and electeds, we are lucky to have the partnership of the city staff, the mayor's team, and a number of alders in our efforts. I'm going to ask each of the city representatives to give a quick introduction before we start our meeting. And Liz, I will pass it to you.
Again, I'm Liz Kramer. I'm the co-chair. I'm going to hand it over to Scott. And we'll pop.
Good afternoon, everybody. Scott Ogilvie, City of St. Louis Planning and Urban Design Agency, Program Manager for Complete Streets. How about we go to Andrew?
Hello, I'm Andrew Lackey. I'm the Deputy Commissioner for the Office on the Disabled for the City of St. Louis. And I'll send it off to John Kohler.
Thank you, Andrew. I'm John Kohler, City of St. Louis Board of Public Service, Planning and Programming Manager. Not sure who else is on the city here.
That might be it for today, but thank you three for being here. I'm going to take us into our next item. I'm dropping into the chat our notes from the last meeting. If you are on the mailing list, you've already received them. I want to check and see if there are any concerns or questions. We will post those notes publicly after this meeting. And Grace has just entered, although I am not sure she's connected to audio. Grace, if you're here, would you like to say hello?
Hi, everyone. Sorry to be a few minutes late.
Grace is our mayor's office representative.
Oh, thanks, Liz. Sorry, I also just turned on my sound. All I heard was, can you introduce myself?
You did great. Okay. So today I'm going to drop the agenda in the chat. I believe most of you have already received it. Today we're going to go through our open floor of concerns from residents and members of the CMC. We have some special guests from Great Rivers Greenway who are going to give us some updates. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the board bills and do a few committee updates and subcommittee updates. So I'm going to start by opening up our floor to the opportunity to share concerns. As a reminder, in this time frame, we really encourage this to be a space where we're voicing the concerns, and then we're going to do follow-up after the meeting to ensure that those go to the appropriate department, whether that's in the city or somewhere else across the region. And we make sure that we share any of the comments that we hear. We try to keep the dialogue to a minimum during this section in the interest of time and allowing all of the voices to be heard. So I want to open up the floor if there are any concerns or questions or things that folks have observed that they want to share. I ask you to keep your remarks under 2 minutes.
Hey Liz, I just wanted to mention that I know I brought it up in the past, but I'll continue to bring it up. We keep seeing the same thing with CSB and specifically traffic or parking enforcement stuff, with complaints just continuing to be ignored. So just since nobody else is talking.
Thanks, Patrick. And we have that on our list of one of the topics we want to make sure we spend a little bit more time on this year as well. So we'll make sure we share that along too. Charles, did you unmute because you have something you want to share? Oh, Kaylina.
Yeah, I'll just note, I think everything's hard and terrible right now in this department. And yeah, so similar to Patrick, we start out the way recognizing there's some real despair out there, and it's hard for all of us on this subject of transportating and being a person in the city. Thanks.
Thank you, Kaylina. Any other comments that anyone would like to share? Okay, hearing none, I'm gonna hand it back to Christy to introduce our guests for the day.
Awesome. Thank you, Liz. Just a quick note before I announce our guest. I do have a meeting at 30 that I must attend, so I'll be passing the mic off to Liz to finish off the meeting. So please forgive me. I'll be back next time. But for our special guest, we do have Great Rivers Greenway coming to speak to us about the Brickline Greenway. The Brickline Greenway, Holdemont Tracks, Birch Garden, Chain of Rocks Park, Deer Creek Greenway, to River de Pears. And here to speak today would be Todd Antoine. He's the Chief of Planning and Projects. We have Mark Vogel. Did I say your name right? Please forgive me.
Yes, Vogel.
Yes. He's a project manager in planning. And then we have Grace Wright, who's the project manager, and Angelica Gutierrez. Did I say that correctly?
Close enough. Gutierrez.
Gutierrez, perfect.
Thank you.
He is our senior project manager. So welcome. We are excited to hear more about this project.
Great.
All
Thank
right.
you, Christy. It's nice to meet you. I'll hand it over to you. I just wanted to say thank you again for the opportunity to kick off 2023 with you all. We're excited to go through some projects, and hopefully we should have time for questions at the end. So if you have anything, just be sure to let us know, but we'll all be kind of taking turns here. And Mark's going to direct us here as we go through the presentation.
All right. Can everybody see the presentation that I'm sharing? Yes. Okay, great. I'm going to turn my video off just so I don't cut into bandwidth working from home today during the snow day. But great to see everybody. Happy to have all of you here joining us for this update on some really, really exciting projects that we have going on in the city right now. As Christy said, we're going to talk about Brickline, the Greenline Holdemont Tracks, and then a couple projects within the Mississippi Greenway. Then we'll finish up with Deer Creek. I believe that everybody on this call probably knows all about GRG, so don't want to waste too much time with an overview of our organization. But just, for those of you who might not be completely familiar with us, we are the Regional Parks and Recreation District in St. Louis region. We operate in the city of St. Louis County, and St. Charles County. We're funded through 2 different sales taxes. And we are actively building projects in 18 different Greenway corridors around the region. And so, we're doing our best to work with partner organizations, administer federal grants when possible. And we've got a foundation that supports us as well. So, providing some critical funding on moving a lot of projects forward from one end of the region to the other. So the projects that we want to share today, this is just sort of an overview of how they kind of connect with each other here in the city of St. Louis. We've got two projects in Mississippi Greenway. Up at the northern end is the Chain of Rocks Park with associated with Chain of Rocks Bridge. And then near downtown is Francis Ford Bird Garden. Brickline Greenway, a really massive project that's connecting a lot of different neighborhoods in the heart of the city. And then transforming the old streetcar line on the Hodiamont corridor into a greenway. And then extending the Deer Creek Greenway from River to Pear west through Maplewood and into Webster Groves and Brentwood. And then just as a reminder, our whole mission is not necessarily to act as a typical or a traditional park and rec agency, but it's really to make these connections between parks and other destinations around the region. And we do that by constructing trails, conservation areas, adding amenities and trailheads, and ultimately providing connectivity around the region. So this first project, Brickline Greenway, the big idea for this project is that it is an east-west connector between Forest Park on the west, Gateway Arch National Park on the east, then going north and south, Fairground Park on the north, and Tower Grove Park on the south. And so it's really different from other Greenway projects that we're building around the region that tend to be one single line. You know, this one is really a network within the greater GRG system. And as you can see, there's a lot of different routes. We're studying some parallel connections and loops, but it's really intended to connect most of the, or a number of really, really great neighborhoods in the city with these four outstanding parks and lots of other destinations along the way. Want to share some status. We actually built a small portion of what was then Shoto Greenway, but it's part of Brickline Greenway with the new Cortex Metrolink station that opened in 2018. And then we have a series of projects that are all underway right now. We're building a section from 22nd Street to 20th in association with the new Major League Soccer Stadium along Market. We have been awarded a CMEC grant to build a connection from the Cortex station to the Grand Metrolink station within the Metro corridor. We're actively designing a section along Mill Creek Valley that'll extend the Greenway from the Major League Soccer Stadium west along Market Street to Compton, so touching on Harris Stowe State University and the Wells Fargo campus. And then a couple of really exciting projects going north along Grand Boulevard from Fairground Park down into Midtown. We are receiving a raise grant for, and then extending that along Spring Avenue to the St. Louis University campus. We will be studying, we just have a concept right now, but we'll be studying a connection along St. Louis Avenue, sort of on the northern edge of the NGA. And then we've just finished a feasibility study to develop a crossing from the Foundry to the Armory through the east and westbound lanes of I-64. So breaking down a really critical barrier for north-south access in that location. We have submitted for a Reconnecting Communities planning grant that hopefully will allow us to continue moving that project forward. And then we are in discussion with the Washington University Medical Center and BJC and Cortex with the idea of extending the Greenway from the Cortex Metrolink station west along Clayton Avenue into Forest Park at the location of Clayton and Kings Highway. And then we're also partnering on a few projects with other city departments. Of course, the Tower Grove connector, this one will be going to bid soon. There's a second phase of that project that will bring us up to the Cortex station at Sarah. And then 20th Street from Major League Soccer Stadium at Market all the way up to St. Louis Avenue. And I'll go ahead and give a plug. There's going to be a public meeting next Wednesday, I believe. So if you're able to attend that one, please join us for that. Now, a few images that show what some of these projects are looking like. I've got a whole series of diagrams that show what this corridor on the North Grand could look like. We are obviously working in a very old urban condition. There's a lot of exciting opportunities for developing this corridor We're looking at building the Greenway on the west side of the street with additional enhancements, as a partner project on the east side of the street. We're also dodging a lot of utilities. And so anybody who has worked with these rights of way within the city of St. Louis, you understand that there's a lot going on below the surface that is a lot of times really dictates what you can do above the surface. So we're working with our design team on what that corridor could look like. But generally on the west side of the street, we're looking at a shared use path for bicycles that would be separated from traffic with a landscape zone. And then on the going further west between there and the building rights building zone, will be more of a pedestrian area. So more pedestrian seating area, pedestrian north-south movements, and also spaces for feeding and possibly even places for street side cafes and things like that. And then an image of what that may look like. We're trying to be very, very mindful of what these renderings, how accurately those are depicting what we're going to build, because we want to be true to the neighborhoods when we're going through our public engagement, and be as truthful as possible what the look and feel, the materials, the level of landscape, other amenities, public art, trying to represent this as best as we can. Another section of the Greenway that we're calling Mill Creek Valley goes through the old Mill Creek Valley neighborhood. This diagram shows the density of that residential neighborhood. On the right-hand side here is 20th Street. This is Market that goes through the middle of the diagram and all the way to Compton at what is now Harris-Stowe State University. You can see the density of residential development and the number of individual lots. 22,000 primarily Black families and residents were displaced from this neighborhood in the late 1950s to give way to what was then called urban renewal. And this is the development pattern of the same area today. I'll toggle back and forth a couple of times so you can really get a sense for how dramatically that neighborhood has changed. This is the new soccer stadium on the right-hand side over here. Again, this is Market Street. We get to the intersection of Jefferson and Market at this point. This was the location of what was known as the People's Building. It was the center of the neighborhood. A lot of the institutions and businesses were centered right there. It was really the heart of the neighborhood in a lot of different ways. And we're working with a local artist, Damon Davis, on ways to commemorate the neighborhood and some of the places that existed along the way. And then as we get further on west, we get closer to the Harris-Stowe campus, we pick up the Stars field, which was the location of the Negro League Stars team back in the time of the Negro Leagues. And so, again, a lot of opportunities for commemoration and interpretation. This is a rendering, an early rendering from a couple of years ago that showed the design of the Brickline Greenway next to the soccer stadium. And this is the Pillars of the Valley, the monument that Damon Davis has designed, again, to commemorate the neighborhood that was there. In the distance, you can see these seat walls that are located at the actual lot lines of the residential properties that were there at the time. And so when you have a chance to go out and experience this yourself, you can, we have the addresses of those former residences that were there, and you really get a sense for how densely developed that neighborhood was and what we lost as a community. These are some photos of the project as it is completed. And so again, I mentioned the importance to be accurate in our renderings for North Grand. We want to make sure that we're delivering on what those the designs are as accurately as possible. And so each one of these pillars is a symbolic hourglass. The intent is to show that time has stood still. And so on the inside of each of these panels is a quote from a resident who used to live there. And then some photos taken just last week of the Brickline construction going in. And so this is the actual design element that will be consistent throughout the Brickline Greenway from one end to another. As we get closer to intersections, we have these these chevrons, these patterns in the pavement that will be a warning to people that they're coming close to an intersection. So it's both an aesthetics thing, but it's also a safety measure to warn people that they're getting close to a zone of traffic. And then a sort of before and after of what that zone along Market may look like. Here we go. And you see the idea is to use some of that additional lane of traffic to give that toward the for the Greenway development, and then on the northern side of the corridor, more of a pedestrian zone for seating areas, and hopefully an enhancement to the Harris-Stowe campus as well. And then this is a rendering of the zone between the Grand and Cortex Metrolink stations within the Metro right-of-way. It's a very narrow corridor, but through the use of landscape and the paving and safety measures like fencing and lighting, we think that this is going to be a really, really nice user experience to go from one end of the corridor to another and access a lot of those new developments that are popping up in the area, like the Foundry and the Armory and others. And then I'll turn it over to Todd to talk about a new position that we're undertaking with respect to equity and economic development.
Great, thanks, Mark. So Chris Peoples, who joined us about a year and a half ago as a project manager, recently took on a new role with us here at Great Rivers Greenway. He's now our Equity and Economic Impact Director, and he is focused primarily in the city of St. Louis, looking at opportunities where the greenways are going in, the brick line being a prime example here of working on and looking at how the greenway can help to benefit economic development and revitalization along the various neighborhoods. So his position is funded partially from St. Louis Development Corporation, as well as from several private institutions, some of the banks we have here in town that are helping to fund his position. So you can kind of see, I won't read these bullet points, but you can kind of look at the various things that he's just getting started on. He just started here working in this position in the fall, and so he's getting up and running. But one of the things that they're looking at, and something that we've talked about quite a bit for the brick line, is to have a physical space in the neighborhood, somewhere that can really be a resource for folks in the neighborhood, business owners, property owners, residents, others, just to be able to come in, speak to him, talk to him about maybe some opportunities that they're looking at for development or redevelopment opportunities, as well as being that liaison working with St. Louis Development Corporation and the city and others about various opportunities that may come up. So we're real excited with Chris and working on this. It's very unique for us. As you know, we are out there building the greenways. But Chris's position is to really say, how do we look at the areas that are just adjacent and off of the greenways as well? You want to go to the next slide, Mark? So, yep, that's the, I believe that's the end of
the brick line portion. Yep. All right, so the next project is the Greenway on the Hodemont tracks. And so historically, this was a streetcar line that extended 3.5 miles through St. Louis from about Grand Center to the city limits at what is now Glen Giles Park. So that's an older photo of the streetcar tracks. And then this particular section shows city alleyways on flanking either side of it. And what it looks like today, commonly, it functions as an alley throughout most of its length. Parts of it have utility service and trash pickup and access to people's backyards and things. But we conducted a whole series of community events and surveys. We had a lot of outreach to determine if people really wanted to transform this old infrastructure into something different. And so we've worked with the residents of these 7 neighborhoods that follow the Greenway, potential Greenway. And we've determined that there really is quite a bit of support for reinvesting in this old transit infrastructure and transform it into something else. And so we're continuing to do a lot of design work, working with a really creative design team on ways to transform that old streetcar line into an open space that will function for everybody. This is a really interesting diagram. The letters that are shown throughout they correspond to different goals that the community said were important, whether it is safety, environmental quality, connecting communities or whatnot. Every design element that they're incorporating here goes back to a value or a goal that the community told us was important. And so I think that they're really doing a great job in coming up with some ideas for enhancing the corridor and trying to raise the value of the neighborhoods along the way. There's paying particular attention to the road crossings, which there's many crossings from one end to the other on the 3.5 mile route. We want to make sure that those are as safe as possible for the Greenway users. And so some of the elements that they're incorporating are to narrow the street, to slow traffic and give people a visual cue that they're coming up to the Greenway. Also working with Bi-State on the potential for relocating and providing more enhanced bus facilities. We recognize that the Greenway will not just be a recreational corridor, but it will be used by people to access transit and to get to other destinations. So as much as we can make this Greenway function for a wide variety of people, make it as safe and attractive as possible, that is some of the goals that we are undertaking. All right, and now I'm going to turn it back over. Todd, are you going to talk about the bird garden?
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Okay.
Also, if you want to advance it. So yeah, we just put the slide on here. I think everyone on the group is familiar that GRG was one of many partners that worked on City Arch River Initiative, the $380 million project to revitalize the arch grounds and Keener Plaza, which you can kind of see here in an image. I think we're really pleased with how the plaza itself gets used quite a bit. Used for a lot of variety of functions and activities throughout the year. And we really appreciate, all the work the Gateway Arch Park Foundation working with the city has on making that a success. If you want to go to the next slide, Mark, I think it shows, this is an image. If you've been down on the riverfront on the North K Sullivan Boulevard, you've seen the one project that we worked on with the city and the Port Authority and others about doing along as part of that whole project was to rebuild Lenore K. Sullivan Boulevard, including this physically separated bike and ped facility along the path along the riverfront. So something that we did a few years ago. There's another shot that shows where the parking garage was, if you're familiar with that on the arch grounds. We worked with the National Park Service and others to revitalize that into a great programming landscape space for events and activities. And you can see the Eads Bridge there in the background in the Cleats Landing. And it's kind of important because we show how the connection through Eads Bridge really is a way to connect, not just along the riverfront, but also through the bridge itself to connect the Cleats Landing back into the arch grounds and ultimately into downtown for bicycle and pedestrians. You can go to the next slide. A number of years ago, 2015-16, we worked with the city and St. Louis Development Corporation on what was called the North Riverfront Open Space and Redevelopment Plan. And this is just one of the slides that sort of shows at the time, looking at what a continuous open space area with Eads Bridge here sort of at the bottom of the screen heading north, what that could look like with an enhanced open space for an improved access for pedestrians and cyclists, but also an economic development plan that looked at how to do infill and redevelopment within the Cleats Landing as well, which is why you see a lot of infill within a lot of what's probably now parking lots. And then just sort of focusing in, which I'll show you a few images here in a second, the area where the cursor is right now is our Bird Garden, which has been under construction and will be opening up very soon, as well as if you're familiar with the landing, there was a parking garage that was down there. And the plan at the time when this was done a number of years ago envisioned what this would look like with that removed. And so I'll show an image of that as well as we go on. So if you could advance the slide. So here's a picture taken, I believe this is probably last spring or so. So the garden has been done itself. It's named Catherine Wergberg Garden because she donated upon her death money for us to do a project. And so working with her organization, we decided to help put money towards this first part of the project. And so that's why it's called Catherine Wergberg Garden. It's a very great space that's going to be used for programming for folks, visitors, as well as residents and people working in the Cleansland area. If you go to the next image, this is one of the things I put in here. If you've been familiar, the project looks like it's been done for a long time, which has been the case. We've been waiting for these trellis structures to get fabricated and installed. And this is a photo taken right around Thanksgiving of them being installed. So we're real excited. We're getting ready to open this up here very soon. This is another image I took when I was down there a few weeks ago, looking at the trellis installed, and keep your calendar open for Sunday, the 23rd of April. That's when we're going to have a formal ribbon cutting for the event, but it will be open before then as well. And go to the next slide. You can see, so I did a little image over there to the left. You can see the parking garage, which we purchased that property late last 2021, and worked through and got through the process for demolishing it, which you can see was well underway when I went out there. And you can see how it really opens up the view down there in the landing. It's really going to make a great opportunity to look at the river, look at obviously the railroad train that's going by there and all that. So a lot of neat things. If you go to the next slide, Mark, you can kind of see that's a photo taking of it. So we'll be on this property. We'll be, for right now, doing, we're removing the rubble that was there. We're going to add some topsoil and fill, do some minimal landscape at this point. So the idea was to get the garage down, because it was really becoming an unsafe structure. Get the garage down, still work on looking at the whole entire vision for what the site could be. And so I envision ultimately it's going to be similar to what we see on the Catherine Berg Garden, just a continuation of that as it goes along. So that's the big vision. But right now it's going to be landscaped, and it's going to be an opportunity. It's probably going to become a real convenient dog park and place to look out along the river there to see the activity and all that. Okay, we'll hand it over to Grace, and she can talk about the Chain of Rocks Park.
Hello, everyone. I'm Grace Wright. I'm the project manager for this Chain of Rocks Park project on the Mississippi Greenway. After years of community engagement, planning, design, and securing funding, we have hired a contractor to begin transforming the current park lot, the parking lot on the left, into the Chain of Rocks Park that you see on the right, beginning this spring. Next slide, please. I wanted to share some of the fun things that will be constructed soon. We'll have local artwork that reflect the Mississippi Flyway migratory route and the Chain of Rocks River geology. We'll have a picnic pavilion for group gatherings and a direct walking and biking access to the historic bridge and the river overlook that you can see there. We'll have an event lawn in the back behind the trees with the round walking path around it where they can have concerts or other events. There'll be a food truck alley with water and electricity hookups for community gatherings. The park will also include restored habitat and ecosystems. The wetland restoration and woodlands will provide food and shelter for the native wildlife on site, including the migratory birds. We'll have we already are working on the 1.5 acre reconstructed prairie. That's kind of to the right of this photo. We'll be providing a permeable parking lot that you can see a little bit of on the left. We'll have rain gardens to reduce the stormwater runoff and enhance water quality runoff from the site and into the Mississippi River. Also very important, but not as much fun, we'll have safety and security features, restrooms, and a drinking fountain. And all of these improvements are planned to be complete by the end of April of 2024. Next slide, please. As for the future of the Mississippi Greenway to the north, GRG and MoDOT have been working together to plan a Greenway route under I-270. MoDOT has left a space for a greenway under the highway near Riverview in red, and you can see another route we're looking at in yellow. And I hope to see everybody there enjoying the park in 2024.
All right, that brings it to me. So this is a short overview of the Deer Creek Greenway. which is located in 3 municipalities: City of St. Louis, City of Maplewood, and Webster Groves. Some of you may have seen these images already, so bear with me here. But the part that is connecting on Canterbury and McCausland intersection to the River de Pere Greenway is our main connector to this long and extensive River de Pere Greenway most of you are familiar with, that is almost complete. We're only missing a section there from that point to Forest Park. So that phase is a future phase that we will be working on in the future. But then this Deer Creek Greenway is connecting the city of Webster Groves and the existing Greenway in Maplewood, and then connecting north to the city of Brentwood, to this big project some of you know, in the city of Brentwood, Brentwood bound. But then this project here, Deer Creek Greenway, is $6 million project that we have applied transportation funding, federal transportation funding for $3 million. So we are working with the city of St. Louis to make improvements to that intersection there on Canterbury and Ellendale, McCausland, to improve the signal, the traffic signal. We're going to take care of all the free flow on the right turn from McCausland to Canterbury to incorporate the pedestrian movements there at that intersection, making it safer. Mid-block there in Canterbury, we're going to do a speed table there for crossing. It's a former school on that north side of Canterbury. So developer there building some new housing asked to keep in the city, supported the idea to keep that mid-block crossing. So that's going to be, I know somebody was asking about speed tables or any speed control in our greenways, and yes, we do. We do look into those options when drainage allows and when, you know, the physical infrastructure can be adapted to it. So we will have that there for the speed control, because we heard from people, you know, safety is one of the most mentioned concerns from people around the region to take care of. So that's part of the project. And so we have connectivity to the south, southeast. And just quick mention on the city of Webster there, that project that is labeled 196A. We have a collaboration with Washington University students, thanks to Matt Bernstein here in the call, I believe, to create a link between us and the class of concrete scapes. So we're going to be meeting with students next week and go over this site. We purchased that parcel and we are wanting to develop a nice space, green space, to connect that existing greenway to the new one that it's, you know, going to connect directly to the city of St. Louis. Long connectivity there with the River de Pere, and River de Pere connected to the Gravois Greenway Grants Trail south of this location a couple years ago. So that gives us over 20 miles of connectivity of greenways, which is one. So this 1 mile that on screen, what you see is 1 mile. This 1 mile is a missing link for you know, connectivity of both the Deer Creek Greenway and the River de Pere Greenway. So I believe I have the close-up of the City of St. Louis scope of work. So you'll see there on the north side of the street, or on the upside of the street, we have the 12-foot wide shared use path for the greenway use. We have all the high visibility crossings. You can see on the driveways, we are going to create the solid green pavement marking for enhanced visibility for those drivers crossing those driveways. You can see there, kind of in the middle, the speed table that I was mentioning, in some, you know, white and green paint at the crossings, following some of the NACTO guidance for crosswalks. And then the intersection, which will be a four-legged intersection, of course, improved to create that, you know, appropriate timing for the project. The city of St. Louis is contributing funding to Great Rivers Greenway for this project to both create a new signalized intersection with new equipment, state-of-the-art, and to take care of the pavement of this street, which is also in need of repair. And this is the detail of the intersection. So it just shows that we're closing that. We eliminate the free right turn lane I mentioned before to kind of capture the pedestrian crossing timing into the signal operation. Instead of you risking your life trying to cross on the right turn lane, we just incorporate it into the traffic signal operation. And we're going to do where the greenway connects, the white and green paint. And of course, everything will be ADA compliant because this is part of our CMAQ grant, the transportation, the federal fund, the grant that we'll be using for this project. And I believe that's all we have so far. So I hope I answered some of those questions that were in the chat. I was watching, Kalina, you had questions about those crossings. So please let us know if we can answer any other questions.
Thank you, GRG team. So we have a couple of questions in the chat. We just have a few minutes to answer them. So I'm going to start with just, I think, a couple of straightforward questions, then I'm going to get to John. So as a follow-up on the street crossing infrastructure, will there be, are there any plans for bike, hawk, or toucan style crossings? Are there any other kinds of street crossings that you all are considering in these new projects?
I can respond to that a little bit, and then maybe I don't know if Grace or Mark have any more details. But yes, every time we cross a street, every time we have a driveway, every time we look at all of the methods that we can use to enhance visibility for safety, hawk signals are considered in some of our projects. I don't recall if on this one that I spoke about, but I know for other greenways we have installed hawk or pedestrian signals or flashing beacon signals, just the flashing that either gets activated with a push button or with the the infrared detector that detects people walking on the greenway and then starts flashing. I think that's it on that question. Did that question have a second part?
No, I think that has answered the question. And then just a clarification on the brick line. Will the brick line connect to Forest Park and or Wash U?
Short answer is yes. So the Forest Park connection right now is envisioned to be along Clayton Avenue under Kings Highway, and that brings you into the Forest Park loop. But I also wanted just to follow up on that question about road crossings. Can you see the Google map that I have up on the screen?
Yes.
Okay. There was also a question about the extension of the Greenway into the Foundry. In addition to providing those really important mid-block crossings with signalized signals and hawks, this is a really, really critical area for us. So just to get you oriented, this is the IKEA. This gray line here is the existing Metrolink route where we will be building the Greenway along between the Cortex Metrolink station and the Grand Station. We all know how difficult it is to navigate Vandevetter underneath the highway and Metrolink. The sight lines are difficult. There's a bend in the road. It's a really, really challenging zone for vehicles as it is, and introduce greenway activity in that area is also going to be a safety challenge. So I just wanted to point this out that through the partnership with Bi-State, one portion of the greenway is going to go over Vandevetter on the Metrolink bridge, and we'll have another one. I saw this question in the chat as well, using the old Norfolk Southern trestle that goes over Vandevetter on the northern side of I-64 will tie in with the Greenway in this location. So I don't have a good diagram handy that depicts it, but I just think it's important to show that we're going to have two elevated Greenway crossings in this one location that is already kind of a difficult location for vehicles.
Great, thanks, Mark, for those clarifications. John. And John and Scott, we have just a couple minutes left, so we can keep it real short.
I just had a quick question for Mark Vogel's presentation of the brick line. The only missing gap that was not addressed is that critical piece between Compton and if you could pull up your map.
Yeah, let me get there again.
And Grand, I believe.
So on the,
is there any thoughts as to how that's going to connect, or what are your planning phases right now to link up this critical piece?
John, if I understand the location you're talking about, it's where all the ramps are between I-64 and Compton over to Grand Boulevard. We all know that this is a very complex interchange. And if I go back to the original diagram that showed all the different phases, you'll see that it is a gap in the planning right now. Hold on a second. There we go. So this is the area that we were just talking about. Hopefully a lot of you are aware of the I-64 Pell study, Pell meaning, oh, help me out. Planning environmental linkages. Thank you. So there was a great open house last week. MoDOT presented alternatives for the long-term planning of the interstate, because this area is really going to be impacted quite a bit by decisions that are made by a lot of partners, Great Rivers Greenway, the city, MoDOT, and others. We really can't invest a whole lot of time figuring out what that gap is going to look like in the long term until some of those other decisions are made, because there's a lot of possibilities for how this area might be developed. We are looking at an interim route. If I go back to the Google map, so over here on the right-hand or left-hand side is the Grand Metrolink station. It's a possibility that we could come along Scott and then Teresa to Spruce and then cross at Compton, and that will bring us to the project that is currently being designed at that intersection of Compton and Market at Harris Stowe. So that could be a temporary interim solution just to close that gap. But we're really trying to take a much longer term look at what the major bolder infrastructure moves might be in this area to have a much more impactful and a better connection between that area. It's a great question, John.
Thank you.
Scott?
Sure. I just wanted to mention a couple additional projects the city is building that connect into that Brickline framework. So one is a greenway, which is actually under construction right now on 21st Street, that heads south, and that will go underneath I-64 and then over to Scott and then south on Jefferson. So that's a key linkage across the highway or underneath the highway into the Brickline network. And then the other project is the replacement of the Compton Bridge, which we've discussed in the past. When we replace that bridge, it'll have a shared use pathway on one side. And that will almost link up with GRG's Market Street project, which goes to Market and Compton. But that's another critical linkage north and south across the rail corridor to the highway.
Thank you, Scott. So we're gonna cut off questions for GRG here, but any questions that anyone leaves in the chat, I'm gonna follow up with the team and share back the answers directly to you. So thank you so much. Thanks to the GRG team for all of their work and for sharing it with us. It was a very uplifting way to start the year. So thank you for being here, and please participate in our upcoming community engagement. I'm going to hand it over to Charles Bryson of TrailNet to give just a quick update on some of the bills that are running through the Board of Aldermen right now before the upcoming election.
Thanks, Liz. So there are two bills. Well, there's two bills that are at the board currently. One is Board Bill 120, which will be heard tomorrow in the HUD's committee at 9 o'clock. It's probably too late to register. That board bill is all about infrastructure. It's $74 million plus in infrastructure. And it's streets, it's sidewalks, it's the mass transportation modernization plan, it's mobility plan, it's plowing streets, refuse pilot project. A lot of that stuff is infrastructure. The issue of Board Bill 120 now is people are trying to make sure that it's not a Christmas tree, that there's not a lot of stuff hanging on it to pass it out. TrailNet took the position that we want to make sure that that board bill passes out without being a Christmas tree. I believe CMC has done the same. It's important that we get that money out of committee, out of the board, and in the hands of folks who can actually do the work for our streets and sidewalks. Second is board bill, I believe it's 138. I may have the last two numbers just juxtaposed. It is about ward capital. It was actually introduced in 2017 or 2018 by Alderman Williamson at the time, and co-sponsored by now President of the Board, Megan Green. What that board bill does is it delineates how ward capital is to be divided. And that board bill has, and it's online now, it has on it sort of a 60-40 split. So the baseline would be 60% of the ward capital, 60% of the 1/2 cent sales tax would be split by ward capital receiving 60%. So all the alderpersons get the same, 60 get the same percentage. Then 40% would be done by metrics. And there's a number of metrics that are in there. TrailNet has not taken a position on that board bill, 183, thank you, on that board bill, but I can tell you the metrics are just a little dicey for us, but we are willing to sort of work with the administration around that effort. Finally, we are working with a number of entities to put together a survey for the upcoming election. I saw, I think B-Works is on the line, as well as Jen Rose is going to be there. Anybody else who wants to help out with that survey, primarily about transportation issues, biking and pedestrian issues, certainly send me an email and we'll get you primed up. We want to get that out before the primary, which, as you know, starting probably this week or starting next week, you'll see a number of meetings set up for discussion and or debate between all the people in their ward. So that's all for me. If you have any questions, let me know.
Thanks, Charles. So, and to Charles' point about a survey, we have actually put together a CMC survey. We haven't done this before, but we're looking for more ways to get input from a wider range of our members. So as a member of the CMC, we would love to hear your feedback and thoughts on these bills that Charles has just talked about, where you think what you think we should be thinking about as we look at them. So please complete that survey. Dawn is monitoring it. We're going to be looking at it in the next week as we think about what positions we take forward. I'm going to move us in our last 5 minutes into our subcommittee updates. I'm going to give the update for engagement. Unfortunately, Dawn has class during this meeting this term, so we will miss her, but don't worry, she'll still be doing the notes. So the big update around the engagement right now is that we want to remind folks or let folks know that we have a Google group that is our primary listserv for the committee. If you're having trouble accessing it or getting onto the Google group, you can let me know or let Dawn know. In order to really improve our communication processes and make it possible for more members to share special events or transportation news, we've changed the settings of the Google group so that other folks can post on it other than just me. Also, you're probably sick of hearing from me. So the engagement subcommittee has put together some guidelines to ensure that the posts are related to the CMC's mission. The guidelines are available at this link, and I'm also going to email this out to the entire group after this meeting, so you will have access to that. If you ever have any questions, let us know. I'm now going to share my screen, and I'm going to ask for very quick updates from the Safe Streets Committee and from traffic calming. And then if we have time, we'll have Jackie give an update on micromobility. So Rachel, do you want to start?
Hi, everyone. Just a quick update. We met yesterday. MoDOT has joined our subcommittee. We got a lot of great information, and some information is going to be sent to us on what roads they're looking on upgrading and signaling. So when I get that report, I will send it to the co-chairs to send it out to everyone. And then also, I'm going to be getting the point of contact at MoDOT who helps with legislation. We are on the same page with hands-free and driver's ed. So we're going to work in tandem with each other to help press our state reps on the importance of hands-free and driver's ed. So I'll find out shortly who those contacts are through MoDOT who can help with that. And I think it's a big move that we have MoDOT on our side who wants to work with us to make our streets safer and want to assist with the state legislation. Also on a local level, just educating ourselves on the needs of streets department and the Board of Public Service, that we really don't have a clear understanding as citizens on the priority of the roads and what they cost and, you know, what conditions they are in. And we really need, like what was stated earlier by Liz, we really need a metrics to see, you know, what is going on in our city with our roads. And as a committee, it would be great to have that data. So that's one thing we brought up to Streets Department and the Board of Public Service. Supposedly there is data on this, so I'm going to try to find out how I can get my hands on it and share it with the group. But also it would be great with this board bill that Charles was saying, that I agree 100%, just the vibes I got from Streets and Board of Public Service, that it would be great to have capital to be set to the side for Board of Public Service and Streets Department to help with local match or particular projects that don't have funding that needs dire need. If God forbid something happened and they need to do some road work and there's no money for it. So there should be like a pot of money put to the side to help with matches and something that comes up on a particular project that really needs the help. So I think hopefully this board bill can move in that direction. There's been feedback from many city departments on this as well, it feels like. But we just need better transparency and understand what are the priority needs of our roads, not based on ward, but based on arterials and the condition of them, because we all live in this city and all use the roads in this city. So it would be nice to see what those calculations are so we can be advocates to support what areas get more funding, or I hate to
Rachel?
say it, if there's a tax that we need.
I'm sorry, I want to cut you off so that I can give Bryce.
That was it. I was
1
done.
minute to give an update.
I'm done.
on
I'm
traffic
done.
calming.
That was it I had to say.
Thanks, Rachel. Thanks, Liz. Traffic calming is the guide a little bit on pause for now. I need to get into contact with someone at BPS and have a conversation with them. And otherwise, attendance is kind of low, and I would love to get a few more people to come join us on those meetings so we can, you know, find a way to make our time useful in terms of traffic calming endeavors. So please come.
Great. We don't have an update for micromobility. I have time for an update for micromobility, but I do want to let everyone know that if you did not see it, the permit did pass. Hooray. Thank you for the micromobility committee to provide that input on scooters and the future of shared transportation. So we're going to close out this meeting and our next meeting is Wednesday, February 22nd. We will be in touch, but in the meantime, let us know if you have any things that come up and be safe out there. Thank you.